Hello all, I'm Thakkar and along with my colleague Alexandra Raonic, we will be talking about craft design collaboration and emerging hybrid model of academic pedagogy in design and architecture education. The work that we will be presenting is part of an international academic research project, Threads of Innovation, which has been awarded UTSFA Grant 2020. Alexandra Raonic is an associate professor, architect, and educator at the Department of Architecture and Technology at Faculty of Architecture and Design at Norwegian University of Science and Technology NTNU, Norway. I am an associate professor and head of exhibition at CEPT University in India and a co-founder of Design Innovation and Craft Resource Center at CRDF. Head of Innovation project is supported by Norwegian Ministry of Education and Research, administered by DICO. This is a 4-year collaborative project between Faculty of Architecture and Design NTNU in Norway and Faculty of Design CEPT University in India. And Alexander Raonic from NTNU is leading and coordinating this project at NTNU. And I am representing CEPT and coordinating the project in India. We've got multiple collaborators on this academic project, like NGOs, research organizations, museums, professional practices, community organizations, universities, etc. on this project. This collaboration makes this project not only unique, but also challenging. This project makes way for two kinds of alliances. One which is cross-disciplinary between design, architecture, culture, and crafts, and other cross-cultural alliance between Norway and India. Through a hybrid mode of education, hands-on workshop, field visits, knowledge exchange workshops, this project supports the academic studios conducted at both NTNU and CEPT University. This alliance brings together different aspects of both the countries, Norway and India. The Nordic context is about the idea of sustainability and holistic living along with its connection to the world crafts. While within Indian context, craft is a way of life and it provides a large plethora of textile crafts. The academic studios reap benefit of both this context through a hybrid mode of teaching. Students, faculty, craftspeople, artists, and experts between Norway and India continuously engaged with each other and enriched the bipolar cultural knowledge in craft, design, architecture, and storytelling. Through knowledge sessions, site explorations, common assignments, and hands-on workshop in hybrid, online as well as physical craft design collaboration model. This 4-year project, multiple studios running at NTNU and CEPT and workshops bring the students and faculty members together physically as well as online in both the countries. Through this project, we were able to develop a collaborative educational platform at undergraduate and postgraduate level that helped in combining the design studio culture and teaching pedagogy with the traditional craft practices both in Norway and India. It is the first of its kind of joint studio that celebrates craft design collaboration pedagogy at a global level. There were two studios running parallel, reimagining the vernacular at Faculty of Design at CEPT University, headed by myself, and making his thinking at Faculty of Architecture and Design, NTNU, Trondheim, Norway, by Alexander Raonic and Gro Rodney. Both the studios exploring the craft design architecture collaborative pedagogy. In order to establish a symbiotic method of learning across both the countries, the studio teaching was segmented into 5 primary tenets. The tenets helped in structuring the format across the borders. First was about knowing the feel of craft and design, then learning from the context, followed by ideation through collaboration, and finally create innovative solutions that can be displayed in the public domain. We use both physical and online mode to teach and transfer knowledge across Norway and India. Within the studio, there were 5 activities that geared the flow of teaching. Interactive learning through hybrid mode allowed students to learn from each other across both the countries. The expert sessions from Norway and India brought different perspectives, and the use of digital mediums like Zoom, WhatsApp, Instagram connected the students and faculty members from CEPT and NTNU. The hands-on exploration and field exposure became the core of the studio, imparting tacit knowledge to the students. In order to know the field of crafts and design, 5 actions: interact, inquire, mimic, and exposure were employed to get an overview of both this domain. During the first week, the students had an interactive session with storytellers Kafil Jafri and Jayashree Shetty from folklore, and they were exposed to the folktales from Bengal, Uttarakhand, and Manipur in India. The purpose of this was to teach them about different cultural narratives across the country. We then organized a hands-on workshop with Mathani Pachadi Crafts at workshop of Vasant and Anita Chitara. This narrative crafts help students to understand how to translate the local cultural and folk stories into a visual narrative. Students were told folk stories: the rolling pumpkin from Kumaon, who will be the king from Manipur, Odyssey of Shamanto from Bengal, and a story in story, a fairy tale from the East. Students interpreted the story's context and developed illustrations from the text and churned them into children's storybook. This storybook will be published in digital format and through app by Folklore Studios in the coming month, making them accessible to the larger public. In order to understand these crafts deeper, we had an interactive session on narrative crafts of India by Nisha Vikram from Craft Canvas. And as the studio focuses on the textile crafts, Kathan Kothari from Manthan spoke to the students about traditional crafts of Surendranagar in Gujarat. We got Kaushal Tekam, a Gond artisan from Madhya Pradesh in India, to give students a hands-on experience with Gond painting. The digital representation workshop by Fingerprint Collective team helped the students to understand how to translate the ideas and data into a visual format. The students researched, studied, and emulated techniques of narrative crafts and created timelines of their lives during pandemic. This data was then transferred into a narrative painting using the visual style of crafts like Kalamkari, Kavad, Kaligat, Varli, Madhubani, Jadupatua, Pithora, and Chamba painting chosen by the students. Students also had a long interactive session and a lecture with Hazel Kataria on typography and Ishan Khosla on collaboration of textile crafts with typography. In order to understand how to translate the crafts into an interesting visual data, we had an handmade type workshop where we brought applique and patchwork artisan Kastura Ram from Barmer and Soof embroidery artisan Pani Ben from Kutch. This was coordinated by Ishan. The knowledge by the expert session on typography and handmade typecraft workshop allowed students to develop various fonts in relation to the TOI, Threads of Innovation project. Lecture on the cultural fibers by Paola Anziche from Italy helps them to give a parallel view on the contemporary application of the traditional crafts. Along with this, we had an expert session from Solvig Lomo about threads of henna rigan. Following that, we had a workshop by Alexandra Raonic. The purpose of the exercise was to challenge the notion of a drawing as a mere 2D medium and to question its relationship to the space and to the way we think and create spaces. The pedagogy is situated at the intersection in between art and architecture, but also in between assumptions and the critical thinking between traditions and innovation. Using a variety of spatial drawings design strategies, such translation of drawing property into material properties, we make way for critical consideration of the prevailing notions and habitual way rooted in the discipline. All this resulted into Wood and Wool Workshop, Arts of Hannah Reagan. Nearly 90 students from the first year of Architecture Studio, ARC 2, participated and created collaborative installation. This was done in collaboration with TOI and TN. We had lectures by Archana Shah from Bandej on story of wool in India. She gave a panoramic of view of the textile crafts of India related to wool. Following that, we had a lecture by one of the most prominent contemporary Norwegian artists, Edith Lundeberg, and her take on translation of textile logic in other materials and media such as wood and light, and as showcased through her work. In India, we took field visit to Kutch and Surendranagar in order to understand the crafts and crafts community. During our visit, we also had physical interactive sessions with Gatit Lehru and Pareshi from Khamir, Amish Shroff from Shrujan, Kiran Waghela from Karigarshala, Tejas Kotak from Hunarshala, and Shyamji Vankar from Bujodi. And we also met Mobin Khatri from Damadgaon. They gave students an overview of the crafts in Kutch and Surendranagar. In Norway, the students went on a field visit to Selbu village, Trondelag, delving into the story of famous Selbu patterns and mittens, Selbuvoten. During the study trip, we visited Selbu Ulfsingstrandal Selbu Biden Museum, dedicated to the preservation and dissemination of local crafts knowledge and tradition with a special focus on two-thread knitting in Selbu. These field visits helped the students understand the world crafts in terms of different types, processes, methods, and the context. After knowing about variety of crafts and multidisciplinarity of design, it was time to learn in depth about both the domains, which was done through the engagement with craftspeople, community, and recording and analyzing these methods. This was achieved through field visits to Surendranagar in Kutch in India and Kleibu village in Trøndelag in Norway. In Surendranagar in Gujarat, the students had the first hands-on experience with Tangalya Weaving by Mukesh Bhai Makwana. Tangalya Weaving, also known as Dana Weaving, is practiced by Dangasya community in Gujarat. Tiny dots of extra weft are twisted around a number of warp threads, giving an effect of bead embroidery to the fabric. Further, at Surendranagar, there was a hands-on exploration with patola weaving with Jahan Bhai Rathod. Patola weaving is one of the difficult forms of weaving. It follows the double and single ikat, tie and dye style for the warp and weft yarns dyed according to the pre-designed patterns before dyeing. In Kutch, the students had hands-on workshop on wool spinning at Mota Varnora with Meghuben Rabari and wool weaving at Bujodi with Paresh Mangeria. They experienced the process from the beginning to the end. In Ajrakpur, students explored Ajrak block printing with Ibrahim Abdul and Rahman Buddha. Not only they explained the entire process, but students were able to create their own samples of Ajrak print. Poonam Khatri, a Bandhani artist in Bhuj, took workshop with all students about the process and method of this craft practice. Bandhani is also known as tie and dye. She also talked about the nuance of this craft and its role in creating a trousseau for women in marriage. In Gundyali village, Alibhai Kumar explained the history of terracotta crafts and its relation to the Brair Muslim community. In Gundyali, there are more than 125 families practicing terracotta crafts. Students explored making of various products using local clay and traditional wheel techniques. Selbu Spinner, located in Kleibu village, Trøndelag, the students spent a day learning and experiencing all the steps from extracting and treating raw wool from the local old Norwegian sheep breeds to making the actual yarn. The field visit was then translated into info cards, which were based on thematic areas chosen by students. For example, the role of tools in the crafts, the position of women in craft community, market and its implication, visual style of crafts, and cultural influences. On basis of the thematic area, the data from the field, tacit knowledge through hands-on exploration, and an oral experience with the craft community, students made narrative-style experiential story map. Now comes the phase of amalgamating the experience and learning of craft practices of India and Norway with design. The knowledge is turned into idea through the process of collaborative thinking, and further, the ideas are explored through various processes of experimentation and then developed into different set of outputs. From this point onwards, the studios in Norway and India took a bifurcation in terms of the final output. The studio in STEP focused on the development of educational games based on their understanding of textile crafts, while the studio in NTNU focused on creating installations based on the learning from the wool crafts of Norway. In India, the students were playing various games, indoor and outdoor, to understand game rules, mechanics, components, and most important is the experience and the learning from it. Game design workshop on traditional Indian games by Ankita Trivedi and Ishita Jain, Graham Foundation Fellows, help students to understand various facets of games like rule, mechanics, game space, types, and experience. A board game development workshop with Austin Davis, an educator and a game designer, helps students understand the deeper facets of game and its impact on the user group. On basis of two workshops, students develop various table-based games using local available material before developing the final game. Students made conceptual iterations, visual language, created prototypes, and tested the game by playing it with young children, analyzed the process, and finally developed board games based on various themes related to the textile crafts of Gujarat. In Norway, the students started the exploration with woolen threads and the space. In here, we see Olstanzol, an installation occupying the space with lines and threads. While here, we see the final exhibition setup using wood branches and trunks for weaving in various narratives and students' work on display. By employing the technique from the experimental drawing in space workshop, the master students from Making and Thinking master course at NTNU engaged in constructing several ephemeral spatial interventions hosted by our client and collaborators in autumn semester at Hewitt Arena. This is the phase of creating the final design product based on learning and experiences from the experts, fields, context, crafts, and community. 10 board games were created with the smallest of details on Tangalya Weaving, Patola Weaving, Bandhani, wool crafts, and Ajak block printing. Each game had a board, various components, rule book, thematic booklets, poster, promotional material, and packaging. Various processes from hand drawings, digital illustrations, 3D printing, laser cutting, industrial packaging, printing on canvas, stitching, cloths, and various other materials of making were employed in creating these games. I'll take you to the final 10 games. The game Ajrakpur is based on Ajrak block printing of Gujarat. The game has evolved on the context of 2001 earthquake in Kutch in Gujarat, showcasing the lives of Ajrak artisans. Yan Yatra is based on wool crafts and teaches the player about various stages of wool weaving through process of trading and strategy. Sargam is based on the wool crafts of Kutch. The idea is to set up craft practices by procuring raw material, craft products, and various components for creating a craft workshop. Jodan is based on motifs of Tangalya crafts at Surendranagar. Using the dot as a component, the idea is to collect the dots and make various motifs. Bandhan is a celebration of life through marriage. It is based on Bandhani crafts where the family has to procure the trousseau for marriage through trade and strategy. Azurak, a game based on Ajrak crafts, teaches the young children about this craft through traversing the board, trading, and solving puzzles. Bindu is evolved from the process of Dana weaving of 700-year-old Tangalya crafts of Gujarat. Each motif has a story to tell, and through collection of pins and cards, the children are supposed to develop motifs on the pin board. Bandage, based on tie and die crafts of Gujarat, has game mechanics that involves memorizing the motif and then using the cards and explore the process of tiling. Adorn, which is based on the Patola crafts of Gujarat, teaches the young generation about the motifs and style through tile collection, card sorting, and solving puzzles. The Shilpa is a board game that teaches children about tools, techniques, process, and products of Patola weaving. It uses the process of strategy, drawing, and collection of resources to impart this knowledge. While in India we were busy designing and developing games, in Norway the team of students and the teacher were creating installations. Heart of Hannah Reagan. 90 students of architecture from NTNU Norway conceptualized, designed, and made ideological and philosophical architectural constructs that celebrates the artworks and humanism of Hannah Reagan as part of Hannah Reagan Triennial 2022 anti-monument. The knot as a basic element is the primordial starting point for both textile production and the first structures made by the humankind. The hundred of knots in this installation demonstrate this principle. The modules are abstract hearts. Together they create an airy organism that extends out into the urban setting. After developing various prototypes and installation, it was important to put them in the public domain to not only understand the relevance of it, but also to understand people's participation with it. In India, we were lucky to organize a game testing session with 30 children from Mano Sadhana at Khoj Museum, organized by Manthan Educational Trust. The children were from the Juapura region and each of them nearly played 3 to 4 games. Students, as well as the faculty members and teaching assistant, learned a lot through this process of testing the final board game. We were all happy to know that the children understood and enjoyed all the games, and this final event made the entire studio and all the efforts worthwhile. While in Norway, the students of the Art 2 studios and the teacher performed a phenomenal art collective. It is part of the Hearts of Hannah Reigen at the HRT Triennial 2020-22 Anti-Monument. Inspired by the Hannah Reigen's art, nearly 90 architecture students from Norwegian University of Science and Technology marched from the university to the HRT venue. They have created the works using wool yarn and framing lumber. The art collective was led by Alexandra Raonic, August Schmidt, Nina Harsecker, Arnstein Olav Gilberg, and Hannah Landfeld Hansen. So finally, we come to the end of this session. But to let you know that during the Hannah Reigen Triennial, collaborative installations will be seen more and more. One will see more modules near Webster, the Flower Bridge at Kringselplansen, and along the harbour promenade. And also during this exhibition period, the students from SEPT University will go to Norway in Trondheim as part of the knowledge exchange program and contribute in the ways that make the installation grow and change and represent the textile crafts of India. Partnership between SEPT and NTNU through the threads of innovation is a true collaboration harnessing the craft design architecture pedagogy across the border. We would like to thank all our collaborators and partners in supporting this project and helping us explore this pedagogy through the hybrid mode of education. I would like to thank AMPS and the entire team from our side. Thank you very much.